When I was 21, I shared a two-bedroom apartment with a roommate. It was summer, and I had my bedroom window open, just chilling with the curtains drawn. Around midnight, I started hearing noises outside, footsteps and faint murmurs. I brushed it off as the usual hustle and bustle of our noisy apartment complex. But then, the voices got closer, too close for comfort. Suddenly, clear as day, I heard someone saying, "I want to fuck you. I want to see you naked." My heart skipped a beat as I looked towards the window and saw a shadowy figure lurking outside. I freaked out, bolted into my roommate's room, half naked, and tried to explain what was happening. She didn't buy it at first, thinking it was just someone chatting on their phone. But I was sure the guy was peeping through my window, talking dirty. We reported it to the police, but with no clear description, there wasn't much they could do. Turns out our apartment manager knew about him, a notorious peeping Tom who'd been causing trouble. He even got beaten up a few times, but kept coming back. Months later, while walking back to my apartment, I encountered him again. He was moving slowly, head down, eyes glued to the ground like he was trying to hide. My gut told me it was him. He lurked against the wall until I passed, then slipped away into the shadows of an alley lined with bedroom windows. I had enough of it, and after a month finally decided to move out of that place.
It was back in 2009 when I was 25, and I found myself alone in our two-bedroom apartment. My folks were out on their usual date night, one of those where they overdid it a bit on the wine and ended up snoozing in the movie theater. So there I was, back from my afternoon jog, the August heat still clinging to me like a second skin. I decided to cool off with a shower, letting the water wash away the sweat of the day. Our place didn't have air conditioning, so I popped open a few windows to let in some fresh air. Kitchen window, living room windows, two of them facing each other, and one down in the basement. I figured I'd spend the evening down there watching movies. It was always cooler. After my shower, I grabbed some dinner and headed downstairs to Netflix and chill. Or, well, Netflix and binge, really. I must have dozed off after eating, because when I woke up it was dark outside and the basement was chilly. The TV cast a dim glow, the only light in the room. Realizing I'd left the basement window open too long, I got up to close it, shivering in the sudden cold. As I made my way upstairs, I noticed the house was still dark. No sign of my parents yet. I cleaned up the dishes, shut the window above the sink, and remembered the ones in the living room were still open. That's when I saw it. The vase my mom kept by the window, knocked over, flowers scattered on the floor. I shrugged it off at first, blaming it on a gust of wind. But as I tidied up, I heard a faint creak, like a door handle being twisted. My stomach knotted and I froze. The sound seemed to come from upstairs, and I strained to listen for any other noise. Silence. Slowly, I made my way to the stairs, heart pounding in my chest. With each step, the tension grew. When I reached the top, I peeked around the corner, but there was nothing, just darkness. Trying to shake off my nerves, I texted my dad about the noise, hoping for some reassurance. His reply eased my mind a bit. He chalked it up to the house settling. Feeling better, I headed to bed, flicking on the lights as I went. But as I lay there watching Seinfeld reruns, I heard a scraping sound from my closet. My heart leaped into my throat as I flicked on the bedside lamp. The closet door was cracked open, just a sliver. Hadn't it been closed earlier? Before I could make sense of it, I heard a laugh, a sinister, chilling laugh. In an instant, the closet door burst open, revealing a figure hidden among my clothes. She was pale, dirty, with cuts and bloodstains marring her skin. The sight was like something out of a nightmare. She muttered something about her baby, and I bolted, grabbing my phone and fleeing to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. From the safety of the bathroom, I called 911, while the woman outside screamed and pounded on the door. It felt like an eternity before the police arrived. But when they did, they subdued her, explaining that she was likely on drugs or an escaped mental patient. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more sinister at play, but the cops brushed it off. My parents came home, and we moved out soon after. It was a night I'll never forget.
In my late 20s, I moved from Germany to a small town in Texas, where I got involved with the local Humane Society and animal shelter. It was there that I met Richard, a rough but respectful guy, who often helped out by dropping off food for the animals. Over the years, he became a good friend, despite his occasional roughness and eccentricities. But one day, Richard came by while he was high on shrooms and started spewing disturbing racist and violent stories about picking up prostitutes and committing unspeakable acts. At first, I thought it was just his wild imagination, but the red flags were hard to ignore. Fast forward a few years, and Richard married a woman named Tammy. I liked her instantly, but tragically, she was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer shortly after their marriage. When I reached out to offer support, Tammy confided in me that Richard had turned abusive, controlling her and even refusing to pay for her chemo. Then, one day, Richard messaged me saying that Tammy had passed away from the cancer, but something didn't sit right with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that Richard had a hand in her death, especially considering the abuse she endured. I grappled with what to do. Should I confront Richard, go to the police, or tell Tammy's parents? In the end, I chose to do nothing, cutting ties with Richard and hoping for the best. Years later, I received shocking news. Richard had killed his own son before taking his own life, allegedly over a dispute about his father's will. It was a gut-wrenching realization that someone I considered a friend could be capable of such violence. I reached out to Richard's ex-wife, and we shared our stories of his abuse and manipulation. But even with our suspicions, the authorities shrugged off the allegations, leaving me haunted by the question, was my friend a serial killer?
I hope you found these stories as chilling and unsettling as I did. It's a stark reminder that sometimes reality can be stranger and more frightening than fiction. If you enjoyed these tales of suspense, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more spine-chilling content. This is your host, Nicholas Black. Until next time.